Okay, so we've done pretty much I'll call it the simpler things, but the reason most people got involved with BeaconSnap was because of beacons. And then of course, right away, we learned about the wallet. So before we even jump into those, let's get some common terminology that you would use that others perhaps at times may be confused about. So let's talk about, and again, I don't want to go into the weeds on this. I just want to make sure we have a common ground. So when we talk about beacon technology and the use of a physical beacon, whether it be something you put in your hand or a stick or whatever it may be, define for us from BeaconSnap's perspective, what is beacon technology?
Having the platform to program beacons.
Okay, so we have a platform. Are there other platforms to program a beacon?
Outside of BeaconSnap?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and who are, obviously since we're talking about beacons, the physical property, if you would, who manufactures beacons?
There are several manufacturers. Estimote, Contact, and Radius are three of the most prominent beacon manufacturers right now.
Okay, and with the platform that we have, can we use any or all of those three beacon manufacturers?
Those three, yes. There are
Okay.
some beacon manufacturers that require actually you're buying their service instead of the beacon, and they program the beacons for you before they send them to you. Those companies obviously won't work with us because you can't program the beacon. It's pre-programmed and locked.
Right. Okay. So we're going to be talking about Radius, Contact, and Estimote as far as the beacon manufacturers. And then we have a platform by which we can program those beacons.
Correct. And any beacons that anyone can find that allow open programming, allow you to program the iBeacon, allow you to program the Eddystone URL.
Okay. Now, without going into the weeds on this, because I realize you could get very technical, and I'm not asking you to do that. If I bought a beacon from any of those three manufacturers, what do I have to do on the kind of ABC level to make that work? What do I have to do to it?
Okay, A, you have to create an account with that manufacturer. B, you then have to acquire a beacon from them. C, they will have an app that you need to download to a mobile device, whether that's a tablet or a phone. Then, with the account that you created with them, you will log into that account via the app on the mobile device, connect to the beacon, and at that point, you have all the information you need to either program the beacon or get a beacon to work with the API of an app.
Okay, so now that's always been the case. So enter BeaconSnap. What does BeaconSnap do that either modifies, changes, makes better those 5 steps? Create an account, acquire the beacon, get the app from the manufacturer, log into the app, and then connect to the beacon through the app. Okay, that's standard with any of those three. If we have BeaconSnap, does that change, or can we do something simpler?
It doesn't change at all.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep it. I'll just answer your questions. Keep it simple.
Okay. So no matter what, if we have a BeaconSnap account now, or I didn't have a BeaconSnap account, I have to do these 5 things.
Correct.
And there's nothing I log into with BeaconSnap that changes any of this.
Correct.
Okay. When does BeaconSnap enter the picture?
When you want to make the beacons do things other than just sit there like a rock.
Okay. So now we've got this beacon with the manufacturer. They don't care about Beacon Snap. Nobody does. We now have a beacon that's connected to an app. It's on our phone. Now, is this app a functional app, or is it just really a registration login type of administrative app?
It's an administrative app for the beacon.
Okay, it does nothing else other than that.
Correct. They might have a little, like Estimote app will let you do like this interesting demo where you can walk away from the beacon that you're programmed to, and it can give you these pretend messages to show you that you can receive different messages based on radius location.
I see.
But
Okay.
it's just a demo. It's showing you how you could program it with a business app. That's all.
Okay, so you mentioned we have a hunk of plastic right now,
Yeah.
and with those apps, can we tell, if we didn't have Beacon Snap, can you tell that beacon what to do with just the manufacturer's software and or expertise?
Yes, with expertise, if you know how to create and program apps and the API, and you're a tech guy like Ed, then yeah, you can create and build your whole own world on your own. With Eddystone URL, if you're using the beacon in that way, you still need a secured website to have broadcast through Eddystone URL, and it can't be larger than 15 bits, which is
Okay, let's stop there a second because we just introduced something new.
copy.
So we said the manufacturer doesn't allow us to really program it unless you're a programmer. So most people, they need something else. Enter Beacon Snap.
Right.
You now provide a manner by which the average individual, average marketer could now program that URL, that beacon to do something, to broadcast something specific.
Correct.
Okay, so now let's get into kind of where you headed. When we broadcast, what can we broadcast?
It has to be, I guess maybe I should go to the Beacon Snap page since we're talking about it real quick here.
And again, we're still at a 50,000 foot view here when we say, what can we broadcast?
Right. Oops, sorry. All right. So I'm going to go to just my account, right? Go to creating this Eddystone URL link.
Before you use that word, but let's get one step above that. When you say Eddystone URL, to somebody new, that means absolutely nothing. But obviously that's a type of broadcast.
Right. A beacon
Eddie,
will only broadcast Eddystone. Eddystone URL is what Google created to broadcast two mobile devices kind of without their permission. So that you can deliver a notification to someone's phone, even though they don't know who you are, and they don't have your app, and they don't have your mobile wallet card, they don't have anything. And that's what Eddystone URL is. But in order to broadcast a message to someone's phone who you don't know, there are certain legalities to that Google followed.
Okay, that's before we go jump there. So Eddystone URL, is it in fact a URL?
Yes.
Okay, so we now have one of the things we can broadcast if we follow all the procedures and legalese that you've started to mention. That's Eddystone URL, we can do that. What else can we do? If we didn't use Eddystone URL, what other things might we broadcast? Maybe they're not very good, but what could we do?
From Beacon Snap?
Well, we have a beacon.
Right.
We program it.
Correct.
It's a hunk of plastic sitting there.
Right.
We come into Beacon Snap. I want to program it. He said, well, you can use Eddystone URL. And I would say, is there anything else, Keith, that I can program besides a URL?
No, not at this time. Not until our custom app builder is up and running.
So if you have a beacon and you're out there in the world and you don't have Beacon Snap, unless someone is building something for you, your only option is to broadcast a URL.
Right.
Effectively, that's the only option you have.
Correct.
So if you want to send marketing messages, you want to send videos, you want to send those kinds of things, you have to do it via a URL.
Correct.
Okay. Now you started to mention there's some legalese. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to have this app, I'm going to send it to, www.randydickinson.com, and it's going to post all these things.
Meaning, so when a beacon is broadcasting Eddystone URL, i.e. the physical web, to a phone.
Is that what you said? Physical web. Now, again, define what you mean by that.
Physical web is just another term for Eddystone. Eddystone URL, that's the URL that is broadcasting the physical web. And the physical web meaning it's the World Wide Web colliding with the physical world. So now a physical device, a mobile device, will get hit with a browser broadcast or a browser's URL. That interaction is called the physical web.
Okay. So now we're introducing physical web. We have an Eddystone URL,
Right.
and that's really all we can do, but there's some rules that have to be followed for that to happen.
So when the Eddystone URL hits a mobile device, now that becomes the physical web.
Okay.
In order for that to happen legally, it had to be a passive notification.
Which means?
That you don't know that you got the notification. You're not going to get a chime or a vibration. It's just going to sit there interlaced with all your other notifications so that it's very passive and unobtrusive.
So on my phone right now, I can slide it down and I see notifications. I didn't know they were there, but they are there.
Right.
So you're saying Eddystone URL, when it follows the rules, will show up on this page, but I didn't know it until I slide it down.
Correct. So
okay,
when most people will check their notification screen when they get a text or an email or a hard push from an app. They get an alert, maybe their phone vibrates, they look to check it out, they pull down on their screen, they'll see those notifications, and interlaced in there, they'll also see one coming from the beacon.
Okay, so you said this one with Eddystone is passive, and then you also just now used the term hard notification.
Right.
What is the difference between hard versus passive?
So the passive, you have to look for it. It's there, but you're not going to get the chime or a vibration. However, your alerts are set on your phone. You're not going to get an alert. That's the bottom line. With a hard push, you get an alert on your phone. A lock screen, hard push would mean that it would chime or vibrate your phone.
Okay. So if you were looking at, you bought a beacon and you like the idea, the concept of marketing, and you've heard these stories about malls and airports, and you're thinking, great, I can send my message out to whoever I want. With Eddystone URL, that may be true, but it's only in a passive mode.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are there ways to use beacons in a more active role?
Absolutely. And
okay, so don't go there yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So we have the Eddystone URL. So what legalese? Now, obviously, Beacon Snap is going to make sure this happens for us, correct? That we're going to be legal and compliant.
Right.
What things? I don't care to learn all those things that you guys do. What do we have to be aware of to make sure we're compliant in using Beacon Snap for Eddystone?
It's nothing on our end. It's all on the user's end. In order for them to receive an Eddystone URL, they have to have, right now, there's 2 web browsers that work with it. There is the Chrome browser by Google, and there is the Samsung browser by Samsung on all Samsung phones. Those 2 browsers, when you either have downloaded that app, you accept permissions to download that app. When you activate a Samsung phone, you accept all the terms with that phone and the apps that are embedded on that phone. So now that has taken care of the fact that we can go ahead and send you notifications because those apps, you've authorized it.
And they'll be passive.
Yeah, it'll be passive.
Okay. Is there anything in terms of setting up this? Now, we talk at Eddystone URL. We said that you can't send a message outside of that URL. So can it be any URL that we choose?
Well, we have made a URL that works for Eddystone URL across the board, which is the near.place that we create for you guys. You just have to add your own personalization to it. But because it's limited for the physical web to actually work, or rather for the Eddystone URL to actually hit a device and become the physical web, it can only be so many characters, and so you can only add up to 4 more characters of customization to this link for it to work. If you add 5 characters and you program your beacon, it will never send that Eddystone URL message to a mobile device.
Okay, so I'm going to say some things here and correct me if I'm wrong. So Eddystone URL has a specific format that must be used for a beacon to broadcast.
Right.
It's a specific number of bytes or characters.
Yeah.
And then after the near.place, which is one that you've designed that works, you can add 4 additional characters. If you stay within that parameter, then anything you attach, and this is where I think people perhaps misunderstand, at least I know I didn't get it initially. You provided a dashboard here whereby we can tell the beacon what to do once that Eddystone URL broadcasts to some let's say it's near.place/1234.
Right.
So because that's the place, at near.place1234, I'm going to tell via this dashboard what's on that web URL, correct?
Yeah, I'm creating it right here.
Okay, so whether I put photos on it or videos on it or text on it, I do that inside your app, and then I'm using the URL that's been approved that you designed to make sure it was going to be read by Eddystone URL.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you're now. If we didn't use, some people might say, well, I don't want to use near.place. So they could design a URL that worked, but then it wouldn't work inside your app, would it?
If someone went, this is when we were first beta testing, as long as you can go create an HTTPS, it's not more than, 17 more characters beyond the colon. If you can create that, and you can program that beacon to broadcast that. Now, that's just a URL, so you have to have whatever the landing page is for that.
Okay, so if I created one that said like https://randy.me, if that was it, /1234, it would be less than the 17 because it'd be smaller than yours.
Yeah, it would work. As long as that's a real URL, a real page somewhere, yeah.
Sure. I couldn't type that in on your page here, could I?
No, ours is locked into this. But you could, if you had your own site like that, you could take your URL and program your beacon to broadcast that URL.
Okay, and I know people have asked that. Where would I do that?
Well, that's where we're trying to offer this service, because in order for people to do that, they either need to get like a ClickFunnels account so they can create, because the idea of this is you're going to create multiple URL landing pages for multiple clients. In order to do that, you need to be able to have a page builder. So ClickFunnels is an example. Now, ClickFunnels is a little more arduous to work with and much more expensive just on its monthly terms than our entire platform. So that's a route, and there's guys and gurus that are out there on the internet telling you don't pay to join a beacon system. I'll show you how to do it on your own. Yeah, I can show you how to do it on your own, but in the end, you're still going to have a $99 a month account with ClickFunnels, and you're only going to get to build so many pages, and then you have to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade and keep spending more and more money depending on how many pages you want to build.
Okay. Keith, if I had a ClickFunnels account, and I'm sure some of our marketers do, you still have to tell the beacon what URL
to broadcast.
to broadcast. Now you've given us a dashboard where you've already made that happen automatically for us if we fill all this in. But if I have one randy.me/1234, I don't have any place to tell the beacon to do that. Where would somebody have to go to do that?
If you had your own site already built that was HTTPS and still within the 17 bytes, you would just take that address and via the beacon manufacturer's app on your device, connect to that beacon and program that Eddystone URL in it.
Okay. When we said back at the very beginning, there's 5 steps we had to do: create an account,
right,
acquire the beacon, add the app, log in. Then we said connect to the beacon.
Correct.
In terms of, is that what you're talking about now, that connect to beacon? Is that step?
Yeah. When you
Now,
open,
go ahead.
When you open the manufacturer app to the beacon, it allows you to find your beacons. Sometimes it looks like on Eddystone, it looks like a little radar screen, and then all your beacons pop up, and you click on them, and it then brings up that beacon and that beacon's profile. And within that beacon's profile, you can then change the settings and program it.
Okay. At some point, we're going to have to put in that near.place whatever we create, correct?
Yes.
So whether we put that one in, the near.place, or we put our own in, it has to follow the rules. You know that near.place follows the rules, so you should have no problem. I'm sure some people have hooked up their beacons and nothing happens when they created their own URL. So now the question is, well, did you do it right?
Yeah, I've had several support tickets where I've talked about this several times, where they put in, a 5-letter word or a 7-letter word, or a whole big name of a company after near.place, and they can't figure out why it's not working. And that's because you can't go more than the 17 bytes. It's got to be only 4 more characters.
Okay. So from a best practice standpoint, while you're setting up your beacon and you've got your URL that you want, let's just say it was 1234, you'd be better served to do a near.place/1234 and then make certain that your beacon's functioning and working before you ever change the URL to something different.
Yeah.
Because near.place works, so then we know that's not the problem.
Correct.
Okay, so do this first. So when someone buys a beacon, they're almost going to Beacon Snap to this page that we see on the screen now, and kind of doing some of these things simultaneously, would you say? Because when you have to connect to the beacon, do you have to put a setting in as soon as you're going to start everything off? Or if you don't change, is there a manufacturer default that's there so you can test your beacon?
Well, the test is that you can connect to your beacon and look at it. To broadcast an Eddystone URL and create that physical web interaction between the beacon and the device, you ultimately have to have
a
URL to test that with. If you don't have one, then you can't really test it.
Okay, when you say you can test your beacon, you connect it, you can see it. How would I see it? How would a new client, a new person buys their beacon, they connect to the beacon, how are they going to see that it works?
Within the manufacturer app, they'll see their beacon, they'll select a beacon, they'll then program that beacon to broadcast Eddystone URL. They'll put in a proper URL address, close that app, and then they can check notifications on their phone to see if it's broadcasting and they're getting that passive push notification.
Okay, so within that, they could broadcast to an Eddystone URL. You could program the beacon to do that. And I'm not suggesting you do it outside of Beacon Snap. We haven't talked to the value you're bringing here. But they could actually do that inside the app. They could go to ClickFunnels. They could go ahead and build their own page, and they'd be off and running on their own.
Yep.
Technically. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got the basics down. Enter Beacon Snap. We're now going to make life a whole lot simpler because you're going to create a systematical way to do this. You're going to categorize by photo, by text, by video. We're going to create records. So tell me about what we're looking at now. How does this dashboard make our life easier, more effective? And then how does it make things work for us? What can we do now that we have Eddystone URL and your app or BeaconSnap dashboard?
Well, we keep it simple. If you've ever like gone to ClickFunnels and tried to build anything there, it takes some know-how and some practice. This one's pretty straightforward and very easy to just build this easy landing page. And you decide whether you want it to be a text only. So then you just, all these fields, you just put in an image, upload an image for the logo, which would go here, change your colors, change your font colors, change your font, shadow, put in a header, that's this title, put in the description, that's what you want to tell people about, program these buttons. When they get there, they could take them somewhere else. All that you can do very easily. You can also make this page more dynamic by making it a photo page so that it displays a photo, so that it starts to play a video. These are videos that would be already online, obviously, because you're connecting through the internet. It's not actually downloading a video onto your phone. So these are photos and videos that it's connecting to via a data connection. So a YouTube video could be linked here, advertising your product or something. Or you can bypass all of that if you just want them to go straight and get a forward to a website that you already have built.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. When you and I first began our first tape session, we talked about one of the first things we're going to do with our BeaconSnap platform is build a landing page.
Right.
This is a different landing page, correct?
This is the same landing page.
Okay, so this is the same one. So if we built it at the very beginning, which you suggested that could be used everywhere, then we don't have to build it again here.
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that for everyone. That we're not building a second landing page. This is that one we already built.
Right, this is your calling card as a way to think of it. And then you already have your URL so that every time you get a beacon, you can just program that URL to see if that beacon is broadcasting a physical web message.
Okay. Now, depending on the business, that if you had a client that wanted to use this, I'm not talking about here whether it would or isn't a good idea, but if it was, you could put in specific links that business, and when someone went, the beacon broadcasts this landing page, and on that landing page, there's links to very specific customer data.
Correct.
And text, images, videos, whatever, and that could take them to another page that has whatever it is on it.
Yes.
Do those pages, those subsequent pages outside of the Eddystone, do they have to be HTTPS?
They do. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let me correct that. If you're doing a URL forward, it does. If you're just putting links in the actual landing page, they do not.
Okay, now explain again. There are some that might not understand. In this particular platform, why would you use a URL forward as opposed to just a link?
Perhaps you don't need to rebuild or make a whole page. You already have a fairly decent landing page that you like that is adaptive immediately. So whether someone gets to your landing page via a desktop, a tablet, or a phone, it automatically formats itself to that device, and you're happy with it, and you just want to broadcast that out. What this will do for you is you can then simply create. So page title, that is basically, think of as the subject line of an email. When they get the notification on their phone, this is what they're going to read, which is going to make them decide whether they want to open it or not. Just like the subject line of an email that comes in, you decide whether you're going to open that email and read it or not.
That's what they're going to see on the notification tab?
Right, they're going to see whatever you put in here for page title. So if it's something that entices them, once they click on that, it could then take them straight to the web page that you already have built, and you don't need to build another landing page.
Okay, so if someone has an existing landing page, and they're now in BeaconSnap, and they go, Randy, I've already created one in Lead Pages or ClickFunnels, and it's awesome. I don't want to use one that's I need something more demanding than this.
Right.
You could say, that's fine. Just go ahead to the UL forward BizWeb tab, put in that URL, make sure it's HTTPS, and bingo, as soon as Eddystone publishes out that web, it's going to be forwarded right to that page. They're not going to see anything in between.
Correct. And the real
Good.
caveat here for someone going, well, why don't I just program the beacon with my web page, is this page title creation, creating that dynamic message that makes them want to click on that notification.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just saying open, Walmart.com,
Mm-hmm.
a place for shopping. You can't. You can like put emojis. You can make it really dynamic and cool to draw someone's attention to say, hey, yeah, I'm gonna open this notification, which then leads me to their site.
Okay. So now that when we enter the dashboard, go back a screen when we started this area here. Is this okay. Is there anything in here that we haven't seen before?
No.
Okay, so this is essentially that first step where we created the landing page. We're now seeing it once again here with our beacons already programmed. If you've already programmed your beacon, if you've already built your landing page at the very beginning, which we suggested you do, once you get your beacon, there's not really much more that you have to do other than when you want to customize a given message, correct?
Yeah.
And if you need then multiple customers, and you say, well, Randy, I need a landing page for each customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the answer, but I'll ask it because someone may. Can we do that?
Yep. You just click Add New Pass, and you can make as many as you want. You'll see I have several made already. And it just locks them, keeps making them and making them and making them.
And the reason they all work is because each beacon is programmed to do its own thing.
With the Eddystone URL, each one of these passes will have a different URL. So this one has URL KCG. This one has URL JPL. So you see it just they keep changing. You have to program.
Okay,
Each pass gets its own URL.
Okay, so, and let's just be aggressive in our thinking here. There's only 4 digits available.
Correct. So you have to get.
So if it was just numbers, you'd say, well, that means there's only 9,999 that were available.
Right.
Then you use numbers and letters.
Right. So it takes it up to like 69 million different configurations.
Okay, that was my next question. Is there a possibility of running out?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, ideally, you'd like to have some kind of nomenclature so you could identify them. Do you see any future where that's going to change, perhaps? Maybe Google expands the parameters of what Eddystone URL can work with. Is there any talk on that going beyond the 17 bytes total, or?
Anything is possible. I don't want to speculate.
So far, there's been no complaint.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to speculate on future products, but anything's possible.
Okay. So on one hand, okay, this sounds really simple until I go, well, wait a minute. Keith, you told me this works with the Samsung browser or the Chrome browser.
Mm-hmm.
What happens? I mean, there's 50% of the world that, well, let's say they use an iPhone and the default browser is Safari. Does that mean if someone has, I don't care how much energy, the best landing page in the world, if they're using an iPhone and Safari, you can't reach them?
Not with the physical web.
Not with the physical web. Is there any other way to reach them?
Yeah, they need to download the Chrome browser app onto their iPhone, and then a couple steps. In their notification screen, when they swipe down, swipe right to see where it says today's notifications, they'll see an edit button at the bottom of that page. When they select that, it will show numerous apps that they have installed on their phone that are not native to Apple, that they can then add to that notification screen as a widget. They will add the Chrome widget to that notification screen. And then when they add the widget, they click done. The widget will ask them to enable physical web or disable physical web. They'll enable it. Now they will get those notifications on an iPhone or an iPad.
Okay. Now, something in the chat room, I've seen a lot of people there's been a number of, I'm going to use the word problems. Sometimes it's obviously Google creates Chrome, so there could be a problem with the Chrome browser that it's a Google issue. Eddystone URL was created by Google, so they could have issues themselves. In those instances, what should people do? I mean, is our Contact and Estimote, are they feeling the same kinds of things? In other words, there's things going on that they can't solve yet either. Are we still in the infancy that, hey, this is new technology, we're going to have some growing pains?
Yes. And in fact, Estimote and Contact both have a similar issue. And that is when you download their app onto your mobile device to connect and program your beacon. If you're using an Android device, it may or may not turn that beacon on, is what we've discovered. But when you use an Apple device, it turns that beacon on immediately, and you can test it, and it starts working right away. The reason for that, once we get down to the bottom of it, and it took several emails back and forth with Estimote and Contact, and I knew the answer. We knew the answer. I just wanted them to finally fess up. That Apple has one operating system, one hardware system, done. It's very easy to build an app for a single platform. Android, however, has multiple platforms and devices out in the world. So building an app that works properly with every single Android device and every single operating system on an Android device is a very arduous process. And that's why some Android devices will not turn that beacon on properly, because the app is not connecting with the beacon the way it should.
So the multiple devices, the multiple levels of, I don't have an Android app, but I know that one time they had ice cream sandwich, and they had this version and that
it's
version.
Oreo cookie, and it's whatever. And so there's all these different operating systems. So depending on which.
And then Google pushes them out to the manufacturer that does what they want to do before they release them to their users. So you don't really know how many iterations have gone by before you actually get it and what may or may not work. So that's always going to be a problem.
Correct.
Under the current level of technology. Okay, let's, and I'm going to suggest, Keith, that we keep this particular video just talking about apps, and when we're done with this, we can stop this and close it and then reopen if we want to go to the next level here.
Sure.
But let's talk about this from the standpoint of marketing with beacons, because clearly the story is, well, all these shopping centers and malls and all that place, everybody's using beacons, and such an airport just put in 2,000 of them, and you can imagine sitting there in your store and everybody that walks by suddenly gets a notification. They all come in your store. I mean, it sounds like, man, this is God's gift to the marketer. Right. And yet there's some caveats to that.
Correct. Otherwise, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And there are caveats. And that's part of the problem, is there's a lot of these beacon guru people out there that are misleading everybody on what you can actually do with all of this.
So let's talk about the drawbacks of passive versus active.
Sure. So the passive.
What does that mean? What can I not do because on my beacon technology that we're talking about today is passive? So what kind of a double negative here.
Right.
There's some things, there's limitations now because it's passive. What are those limitations?
The limitations for the physical web is this. Right now, unless an iPhone user is become made aware of it or interested in it, they're out. You're not gonna be able to target them at all. And they make up globally they're at 16% of all smartphone users are iPhone globally. 16%. In the United States, it's, I believe, 30%. Now, the other side is I'll say Android is 80% of the global market and 60% of the US market. So the overwhelming majority of smartphone users are using Android phones. The overwhelming majority of smartphone users are capable of receiving these physical web messages. So you can hit the overwhelming majority of the population with your messages
As a whole,
as a whole.
which may, for example, if you're dealing in probably Silicon Valley, that may not be such a great thing to do that.
Right.
If you believe that Apple's got the root there, and so let's say they had
Correct.
70% of the marketplace there.
Right.
It might not be a good idea to tout this to a business there that's really planning on reaching that Apple marketplace.
Correct. However, there are ways of working with what you have, meaning that even though you might be in Silicon Valley or Apple One, whatever their big spaceship building that they built there,
Mm-hmm.
and all surrounding businesses, is this: you can say, look, we can create a physical web environment, this beacosphere, here at your shopping mall, here at your store, here for this real estate person doing their open house and walkarounds and dealerships. All they have to simply do is make the iPhone user aware that if you want to have a really awesome experience and come into the physical web world, enable this on your phone so you can walk around and experience this physical web world as you go through my open house, as you go through my dealership, as you come to my shopping center.
Okay. So, and that's not to say that there aren't some times where iPhones don't get this perfect either. I mean, sometimes an iPhone doesn't work. It's
Right.
the internet, so things happen.
Right.
So we know, number one, that there's a limitation on reach in terms of iPhone versus Android, which may or may not impact someone. What about the idea that this is let's just say we have a beacon that can broadcast, let's just say it's 100 yards. We know that there's different beacons for different levels of broadcast distance, and you can get those from the manufacturer. But let's just say it was 100 yards. We're really extending our reach out. And so when people walk by and they had their iPhones or their phones open and they were looking at notifications, they could see it. What happens when they walk outside of that broadcast area? What happens to that notification?
It disappears.
Okay, so I guess another marketing consideration is if people aren't looking at their phones at the very moment they're within your geographic broadcast area, then they're not going to see it.
Right.
So if you're in a mall and you set this whole thing up, but people don't have their phones open and they're not sliding down looking at notifications while they're near your store, you may not reach anybody.
Correct.
Okay. And again, I'm not saying it's just the nature of the technology where it is right now. As we've described it so far, that is a consideration.
Yes. There are pros and cons to everything, and that's how this works right now. The fact that you can even hit anybody, though, is pretty cool. Because a year ago, you couldn't hit anybody unless you had their email, you had their text, their phone number for a text, or you had them download your app. You had no way of hitting them on their phone.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, one thing that can change all this, and you mentioned it earlier, to go from a soft, passive notification to a hard, active one is if you have an app, much like you think of a traditional app on a phone, a game or something that suddenly, or even a text message where you're notified. So if you had a custom app, a true app, that would change this completely, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So unless you're an app programmer, though, or can build iOS and Android apps, that would become a huge hindrance or a fence that most of us couldn't climb. Would that be correct as well?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So you recognize that as BeaconSnap. Are you doing anything to help us move along by solving that problem?
Yes, we are adding a custom app builder to the platform that will be as easy as 1, 2, 3 for you to build an app and program beacons to interact with that app.
And so then we can get hard notifications?
Yeah, if someone downloads an app that you have built to interact with beacons, and they have that app on their phone, they will have hard push alerts. They will get alerts and notifications and
Okay.
guaranteed,
Now, is that
right?
guaranteed?
Well, the
Is this the
guarantee is
same?
this. I'm sorry, let me put in a disclaimer. Providing that they have Bluetooth turned on, because you got to remember a beacon is a Bluetooth low energy device. If someone has disabled Bluetooth on their phone, they will never get anything, whether they have the app or not.
Yeah, well, you can't use a Bluetooth speaker or a Bluetooth keyboard if you don't have it turned on.
Yeah, and most people, like, they can't use their smartwatches, and they can't, with their cars when they get in, connect automatically to their systems, to their hands free, and
Or
that
they're
was
wireless headsets.
right. And this is some of the pushback, but the pushback is the majority of people today now have Bluetooth on all the time. The reason that they used to keep it off a few years ago was it was a major battery drain. But Bluetooth technology has improved. We're at Bluetooth 5 now, and it's almost insignificant to the amount of power it draws off your battery. So it's not killing phone batteries anymore.
Okay. For a yes or no answer, is this app builder part of the conversation when you said you were building a community app?
Separate.
This is a completely separate idea. Okay, so now will this require for iPhones, for example, to have an iOS or Apple developer account?
No.
Really?
No.
So we can publish something that can actually sit on an iPhone?
Yes, we're going to publish it. There's going to be obviously an additional fee, a licensing fee to create this app, to get the license for it. But part of why we're a little delayed in getting the app out there is, A, we want to make sure it's as easy as 1, 2, 3 for everyone to build an app and program beacons to work with it. And then B, we're doing all the work so that we publish it in the iTunes store and the Google Play store.
Okay, and I don't want to go to the weeds here, so I'll ask the question, and again, just on a 50,000-foot view, having had an Apple developer account and developing apps, some might say, well, wait a minute, if you have the developer account, it's your app, it's not ours. We can't change it, we can't do anything, and you would probably have to say, yes, that's true. On the flip side of that, I know that once you have an app, when these iOS changes, you got to go back in there and change everything. You might have to resize the images. You may have, there's a boatload of service work if you're an app developer.
Yes.
And unless that's what you want to do, I understand someone saying I want to own it.
We will automatically update the apps on our end.
So you're going to take care of all that, because that's, again, developing apps sounds really wonderful, but it's a pain. It's just a pain.
Yes.
Unless that's what your business is.
Correct.
And for most of us, this isn't going to be our business. So you're going to eliminate that. Will it publish for an Android phone as well?
Correct. Yes.
So it'll be on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store then?
Yes.
Okay, great. And that's coming out, again, best guess?
I hesitate to say anything because our goal was for August. Obviously, we're in September now.
Okay,
however,
so it's as soon as you can get it done.
Trying to deliver something that is bulletproof, like I said, and not, okay, here it is, but it only half works or it's hit and miss. We want to make sure. So we're testing. We're making sure all the bugs are out of it, and that if it's going to be as similar as for app builders that are out there that understand, like Appy Pie, where you can go in there and build an app and not know anything about how to build an app, and it makes it super simple. It's going to be that simple.
And yet it'll offer some.
We're going to offer things that you can't do, like Appy Pie, for example. You have to go through them if you want geofencing. You can't program the geofencing yourself. Where here with our system, you'll be able to program it yourself, change them, change the size of them, change the messaging.
Okay. Well, that explains a lot, because one thing I've learned in life, with increasing flexibility is increasing complexity. And if you're going to make this available to masses, then to test and verify, and we can see it, you get 300 or 400 people all doing this, that you're going to see things that you didn't anticipate. So you've got to have that thing pretty well wired in before you can afford to release it. Otherwise, you'll have more more disgruntled than customer service calls than anyone could ever handle. So I appreciate you taking the time to get that done properly.
Right.
Because that could be having your own app now and being able to do that for a business is huge, because it can be. I looked at one the other day, and the minimum to start, just to start talking, was $5,000, and it was nothing. It was a glorified web page, but it was a custom app.
Right.
So most people can't afford $5,000, especially if you're in a small business market. They're never going to do that.
Correct, and they're never going to get a good rate of return on that investment, because unless someone is using that business's app on a daily basis or weekly basis, they will delete it. The statistics right now is, I forget the exact number, but it's like the overwhelming majority of apps that are downloaded every day are deleted either within an hour or 24 hours.
And you know why most of them aren't deleted that are still there? I just don't want to go take through the time of going through my phone and going through and deleting them all.
Right. But a lot of people only have so much real estate on their phone. And so, yeah, while you go somewhere and says, oh, download our app, back in the, not that long ago, actually, to get free Wi-Fi at the airport, I used to fly twice a week. A year ago, almost a year ago, I stopped doing that. This other day job I had, basically. But I was flying twice a week. Depending on the airport, to log in to get free internet, you had to download an app. That was kind of the gimmick. Well, I would download the app so I could get access to free internet, but then I would immediately delete the app because I had no purpose for it. Yeah, similarly, if I'm in my little Vista Village town here, right, and I want to go to the mom and pop florist and the coffee shop and the breweries and the pizza place, you name it, yeah, maybe they could afford the app, but is someone going to really have an app for every single business in Vista Village on their phone? No, it's going to take up way too much real estate on their phone for them to go, okay, I want to find, for, Backstreet Brewery or Lamppost Pizza or Swami's Restaurant or, Little Cupcake, all just too much. So our idea was, well, we will create a universal app, which we're going to call the community app, so that you as an agent in your area or me here in Vista could go to the independent businesses and say, look, I can give you an app that'll give you great interaction to broadcast to your customers, to have beacon interaction, to have geofencing, to do all this stuff. And it's free. We're just making it the community. So we get all of the businesses to want to use the app for all of their customers for everything. So then you have one app for the entire Vista Village commerce industry that works, whether I go to the pizza place or the coffee shop. The app will interact with those businesses. A beacon could launch a coupon for me when I walk in the door. I can get geofence. I can get push notifications. You can sell advertising that way, because if everyone's in the community app, you could be like, well, if you want to send an ad out to everyone who has the app, that's an additional fee and different things. So you get everyone to work together. It's similar what we're thinking of. We're thinking of the app Kickshop. Mm-hmm. That's what that app does, but it does it for tier 1 industry. Mm-hmm. It does it for Target, for Walmart, for Macy's, for Nordstrom, for huge tier 1 market. We're building that Kickshop app for tier 3.
Love it. Great. So let's summarize what we've done here. We started saying that to get involved with beacon technology, you need to decide what beacon you're going to buy. We talked with 3 different companies, Estimote, Contact, and Radius.
Radius, yeah.
Radius. And then you're going to create a manufacturer account with them. You're going to acquire that beacon when it's shipped to you. You're going to download the manufacturer's app. You're going to log in via that app, and then you're going to be able to connect to your beacon and see that it actually functions. That beacon will have the ability to publish, and you're only recommending beacons that can publish to Eddystone.
Correct.
An Eddystone URL, and that Eddystone URL has specific limitations. Beacon Snap has an approved or functioning Eddystone URL right now, the near.place with the 4 additional digits. You could do your own, and if it worked, You could actually program your your beacon to use that. We suggest you don't do that. First, just use the near dot place because we know that works to make sure your beacon's functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've got it all set up and running, you can publish your Eddystone URL, you can broadcast it. You will send everything to a landing page that either you've created already. If you have, you can use a forward address. If not, you can use the software right now and build your landing page that we suggested you would have built already. It works with two browsers, essentially Chrome browsers and a Samsung browser. And then lastly, we said there's limitations. It's not a catch-all for all marketing. It's passive right now. Once you're outside the limit of the beacon, the notification disappears. And there's limitations as to reach with Android versus iPhone. iPhone, much stricter, and of course also has fewer numbers here in the United States. But with that, it's a new technology. It's certainly gaining a foothold in various industries. It's something we need to be on top of. And for some people, passive notifications may work perfectly well for the application they need. But don't assume because it can broadcast that it is the ultimate marketing tool that people are just going to flock and pay you thousands of dollars a month to get passive notifications to an audience that may not be looking at their phone. That's not realistic.
Correct. Don't oversell it is what I've tried to tell people. And I know that all these other agencies out there are overselling it huge, and it's giving it a bad name. So don't oversell it. It's another tool. It's another marketing instrument, and when played correctly, makes a symphony.
Yeah. Well, I think I talk about it all the time with people, but I try to avoid using, for example, if you start saying beacons, and then people say, "Oh, I know what that is. I've been, some MLM tried to do that for me." So I think sometimes describing what it is we're accomplishing, how would you like to be able to contact an audience when they're walking within a certain distance of your business, and you would be able to and kind of describe a situation where you're solving it rather than using the jargon of the day. Because once they say, "Hey, I'd love to do that," now they really don't care what you're calling it. They want the solution you're describing.
It's true. I think of, a lot of people want a passive salesman. A lot of people avoid going to a dealership because there is no such thing as a passive salesman.
Mm-hmm.
However, and I worked in the automotive industry for a long time, the way of the salesman is going the way of the dodo bird very, very fast.
Oh, in so many industries, that's true. Look at banking. You
Yeah,
don't even see a teller anymore.
correct. But especially in automotive, basically what those are going to turn into are delivery centers. You're going to configure and buy online because the world is changing for the millennials, and the millennials, that is their preferred form of shopping. And they're going to just need to know how to deliver the vehicle and service the vehicle. So, and salesmen right now, they hardly make anything. I mean, people always think that there's tons of markup on cars, and they go in there thinking, I'm gonna whittle this guy down, and because he's making thousands. No, the average car salesman on a new car sale makes between $100 and $200 per car.
Yeah. The dealership only makes $1,500 on the front end.
Right. So it's very little money now because of the internet. The internet leveled the playing field. There's a great book called The Earth is Flat. It's an economic book. Came out, 15, 20 years ago. But it really lays out where we're at today. Doesn't matter. I could be in a corner in a third world country in a little tiny shack, but because of the internet, I can have a multi-billion-dollar company, and I can compete with anyone who has four walls and a huge staff at this point. Yeah. And that's what's happening. And so more and more salesmen can't make money, and so they're dropping out, and so they have fewer and fewer just on deck as it is, period. Well, this would be a way at a dealership to be like, here's a passive salesman. When people come in, you can say yes. When you want to talk, if you want to test drive, great. In the meantime, every vehicle out there is broadcasting its information about itself. If you just look on your phone, you'll see a notification when you get up close to a car. You can click on it, and that can give you all the information, all the questions, and everything you want to have, and all the interaction you want to have with that car as you walk the lot. So feel free to walk the lot. It's passive salesman for you, and when you find the car you want, come in, we'll hook you up, or just click the link in the notification off the car on the page, and that link could be a direct link to call right in or text directly to the sales desk to say, yeah, I'm standing out here at this car, I am interested, and they'll boom can come right out and give you the keys and go for a test drive. So you can make it cool if you figure out how to use what it does instead of focusing on what it can't do. You can create a really good sales pitch.
Well, and that's where when you create your custom app, that'll take this to the next level then.
Yeah, I mean, you could be like, hey, while you're visiting today, download our app. This is what how museums are starting to do this, that start testing with this market. As you go to the museum for the day, you don't need the app of the museum in your phone permanently, but you'll download it for the day, because as you go through the museum, it's going to fire off hard push notifications and give you great, rich data on all the areas that you're in. Oh, you're in the medieval section of the 16th century. Oh, now you're in postmodern art, or you're in Art Nouveau, or you're in all these different areas, right?
Oh, I've already. That's so awesome that they can do that. And thinking that working in a dealership.
Yeah, even if it's just for the day, yeah, download our app, go walk the lot, and you'll have a great interaction and be able to just click a button to have someone run out with the keys for a test drive. Oh, really? Yeah, just download this app for the day. It's a great interactive tool. Yeah, they're going to delete the app probably after that visit because they don't need it. But while you were there, it's targeting people the way they want to interact right now, which is most people don't really want to have face-to-face.
Yeah, no, they don't. And then if you could have it too, if you want more information on this, any of the cars, you just click a button and it automatically downloads a file on that car and sends it to you. I mean, so you can really get, I mean, we're at the infancy. That's why I think I read some of the posts and they're getting discouraged about, Estimo can't do this or Contact can't do that. Hey, don't worry, this is business. This is real life. If you're a manufacturer, do you know how many times you fail when you're building something, and when you finally get it right and it shows up, all the different things that had to happen for that to happen. So
Yeah.
this is a business.
Statistics that are out there now is a year ago, there were only roughly the exact number. So I'm going to say there was an estimated 5 million beacons globally in retail. A year later, which is now, it's over 9 million beacons. So it almost doubled in a year how many retailers are using beacons. That's estimated to grow to 400 million, maybe 500, somewhere up there. Let's just say I'll round down, 400 million beacons by 2020 in the retail environment.
And I think what's exciting about that is that probably most of those, because they're on a tier 1 type program, they are using a customized app with their beacon. And you're going to give us the capacity to do that very same thing.
Right. We're trying to
that allows us to really move into an area that up till now, really, we don't have a chance.
Yeah, we're trying to give mom and pops the competitive advantage over tier 1. And I know some of our agents want to go after tier 1 companies or maybe tier 2, and that's fine and dandy. And we've done that ourselves. But I mean, it's taken us as long as a year before we actually had everything solidified, done, contract signed, and started actually doing anything. Because when you deal with tier 1 or tier 2, it goes through, they want it to go through their legal department, and then it comes back this, and then it's this, and it just takes forever.
Oh. I'm in a project right now. It's 2 weeks. It's in legal. It's still in legal now.
Yeah, it takes forever. So
I can't do anything. Do anything.
Yeah, so people go, oh, but it'd be such a huge ticket. Yeah, it'd be a huge ticket, but it's going to take you a long time to get that ticket, and it's going to be a huge headache to maintain that ticket versus have a lot of little mom and pop shops, low maintenance, easy money by comparison to dealing with tier 1, less headache, more appreciative. You're not trying to resell them every month to keep you. Price it right, what they can afford, keep them happy. It's good stuff.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I think we've covered beacons today. Did it pretty thorough.